Hi, it's your friendly neighborhood adjunct professor, Jude Olivetti here again. I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to the commentaries and help you understand how to use them for your paper on Genesis 1 to 4. So here's the one we're going to use here is from Google Books. Thanks, Google Books, for giving us so much of this that we can use it here to describe the commentaries. And also you can just use it to do your research on 1 to 4 because the relevant passages about Genesis are included in this preview sample from Google. So it just starts out here with the information about the book, stuff that you might need for your bibliography, which is also listed on the instructions. So we're just going to skip here to the Genesis material. So there's a basic introduction. They talk about interpretation. You'll learn in the course that we do not take everything in the Bible as scientific or historical facts. Some people do, and that makes a lot of problems for the way that they interpret these passages. So that's what they're talking about here. Arrangement just has to do with the different sections in the text of Genesis. The theme is important. Please read that and understand how some of these themes might be present in the particular section of text that you do your paper on. And I just want to take a minute here to say, please focus on the particular section of text that you pick from the list of the 16 topics on the paper. Sometimes students try to do a whole chapter of Genesis or some a particular larger theme in it. No, please focus on the particular section of text from the list of 16 sections. All right, so just focus on those few verses. Okay. They go into here on sources. It gives you a brief little history of the way that the different source theories and hypotheses worked out. And they tell you a little bit about the one that still is prevalent, maybe not as cut and dry as it used to be, but the documentary source theory. And I will still use that in this course with a little nuance, right, as it is used in contemporary biblical studies today. But this is important for you to understand these basic 4 sources so that you can understand who the group that wrote your section of the text was writing for and who they were and what their interests were. So as you have different groups writing, they're writing different editions or using old stories and reincorporating them. That's important to understanding the meaning of the story and what they wanted their audience to understand. So Erdman's has a nice section about the dates of Genesis, that Genesis was written. And then finally, authorship, which is going to be a little synopsis here of what we saw up in the source section. All right, so that's the way Erdman lays it out. Erdman's biblical commentary lays it out in the introduction to Genesis. Again, kind of important to read the introductory material so you can understand where the authors are coming from. And then when you get to the actual text, you can really understand what they're talking about in the commentary. They're meant to be read together. Okay. Nice little section here in Erdman's 2 on the Near Eastern parallels to Genesis 1 to 11. I do have a suggestion in the instructions that you write something about that in your paper if you can, because a lot of the stories in Genesis are readaptations of older myths from other cultures. So in other words, the Israelites take the older myths, the stories that they know, and they change them to fit their revelation about God. We call that sometimes broken myth. So finally, they're going to get to the particular commentary, and you'll see they'll have a section listed. Now, this is a long section here, 1, 2 to 3. and they'll say, they have here P, meaning that this is written by the priestly writers, one of those four main sources that we're going to talk about during the course, and is written about in the introductory material here to Genesis in this commentary. So they started here with that, it's kind of a big section. It's chapter 1 plus a little bit. But then when you look at it, they break it down into smaller units. Here's chapter 1, verse 1 to 5, and even smaller here because they start with 1, verse 2, and then, they go to 1, verse 3 to 5. So that's typical. So what you have to do here is I would read the whole section that included whichever verses I was going to do my paper on. So if it was between chapter 1, verse 1 and chapter 2, verse 3, I would read this entire section. But special attention should be given to the particular section that contains your verses. All right. So that's the first section. And then you see the next major section is chapter 2, verse 4 to chapter 3, verse 24. Why? Well, it seems to be written by a different source. It's actually a whole different story. So again, it's broken down into smaller subsections, 2, 5, 17, which is actually pretty big for a biblical commentary. And likewise. So really what you have to do is just read the major section and then focus especially on those subsections that deal with the verses that you're going to choose for the paper. All right. Okay, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please contact me via email or text or phone. Look forward to talking to you during the phone interviews.